And we're live. It is Tuesday. It is the 21st of October, the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. Washington, D.C. time, which is, just for those of you who do not know the West Coast time differential, 5 a.m. Seattle time, which will become relevant in a moment. It is also the morning after the drop of Anna Bauer's truly deranged piece about her text exchange with the estimable Lindsay Halligan. And I just want to say, as the editor of that piece, who has spent the last week uh, waiting with bated breath for Lindsay Halligan to reply to the latest Anna Bauer text, and being consistently surprised that she keeps talking. I just want to say uh, that was a fun piece to edit. I enjoyed it, and if any other senior administration officials decide that rage texting Anna Bauer is the way they want to deal with their emotional reactions to New York Times stories, bring it on. Um, uh, Anna is not joining the show this morning. I know that some of you thought she would be. We did a live stream last night. Anna needs to sleep. She is in hopefully not awake yet, and I didn't even ask her to come on the show. And the reason I didn't even ask her to come on the show is twofold. The first is she needs to sleep. She's been slogging real hard, guys, and then she was doing media last night. So chill. She needs rest. We're respecting that. Uh, the second reason is that we had already scheduled guests. As you can see, we have Lauren Buitta in a Jaws shirt, and we have Lad Decker joining us from Seattle, where it is insanely early. And so I'm going to shut up momentarily so Alicia can introduce them properly. Y'all already know Lauren, at least if you have watched the show consistently. And so we were previously booked. So the lack of presence of Anna Bauer on the show this morning is what the political scientists call an overdetermined variable. You will have plenty of time to hear from Anna Bauer, just not this morning on Dogshirt TV. Folks, there is a really important development that happened over the last couple weeks, which is that Alicia Wanless went wandering again, and she was traveling, and then she returned, and she texted me that she has a new shirt. So before we get too much further into things, Alicia, tell us about the shirt.
Right. So obviously it's wanless, not wanderless. That was really punny. Very dad joke. Let's start this day.
I'm
So I was
sorry. I, these are improvisational monologues, dude. And when we have Alicia
nope,
wandering,
wanless,
and
not
she's
wanderless.
wanless, we reserve the right for there to be a pun. It's not, there's no apologies for that.
It's very early in the morning. I'd love to say for me, but alas, I've been up for a while. Anyway, new shirt. Of the places I was in the last few weeks, I was in Ljubljana. I went to Slovenia again, head across from Trieste in Italy. And the conference I was at, which is hosted by the EU Disinfo Lab, and a great event if anybody is looking for these types of things. The next one is in Vilnius in Lithuania. They take us on a tour of the city. And one of the things that the tour guide said was that Ljubljana was basically created or tied to Jason, Jason of the Argonauts. Okay.
Right, that's
And
not
the whole story
mythological
that
at
they have
all.
about their The whole story centers around, apparently there was like a village or something, and there was a dragon, and the dragon demanded a virgin every day, and this was problematic for a settlement. And along comes Jason and his Argonauts
And it
and
really
slays the dragon.
discourages promiscuity because that reduces the number of virgins available to feed the dragon. I
Right.
mean,
So then
you know,
Jason gets,
you're just kind of screwed, no pun intended, if you're the village. Like, who's gonna get to have sex?
well,
That
you
you're
are and you aren't, right?
right. All the virgins get fed to the dragon, which is no good deal for them, and the villagers have nobody to have sex with. So
But also
it's a
Jason and the
bad
Argonauts were
deal.
just up there. It's just like
Right.
all of it was bizarre. Dragons cover the city and they make t-shirts. So I felt this was an example of propaganda, propagating this idea that Jason slayed this dragon. Now, what's more though is that we kind of got snarky amongst ourselves and said
Also,
it was probably
political
just some
violence,
guy named
bad. He should have reasoned with the dragon.
ooh. Uh but our big joke was that it probably wasn't a dragon at all. It was just a guy named Dragon. Yeah,
All
inside
right.
baseball joke. If you know
Uh,
names from there. Now, I'd like to say that this was all off the record.
I, ev- Alicia, everything I've ever said to you is off the record. Um, all right.
You know,
Look,
this the part of the Jason and the Argonauts myth that Alicia is referencing actually plays a role in one of the most delightful scenes in film history, in my opinion,
which
which
scene
which
in
is
which
the Ray Harryhausen adaptation of Jason and the Argonauts. I don't think I'm screwing up the mythology, but after they kill the dragon, the teeth turn into skeletons. Is that the right myth? And they rise out of the ground and fight Jason and the Ark. It's a wonderful. Oh, there's something with whatever. There's a Jason and the Argonauts film from the 50s. Absolutely delightful if you have kids. And a dragon gets slayed, skeletons rise from the dead, and there's a big battle in incredibly charming claymation and stop motion animation.
And obviously, this
I've made
happened
my
in
con.
Ljubljana. Everybody knows.
everybody knows. Folks, the sun is shining. The birds are chirping. It's going to be a great frickin' day if your name doesn't happen to be Lindsay Halligan. And you are watching Dogshirt TV, and it is a goddamn revolution in morning television. And one of the revolutionary features, of which there are a whole lot, is that whenever Alicia Wanless goes wandering, and she returns with a new propaganda shirt and she describes it on the show. And that is just a feature of the show as it has evolved. And another one of the revolutionary features, and this one, I have to say, is a matter of extreme pride for me, is that sometimes projects develop out of the show that I am completely unaware of. And we have a guest on the show, and the guest meets a member of the Greek chorus on the show, and they start corresponding or talking or whatever, and they end up working on something together. And that is why we have Lauren Buitta and Lad Decker here today. And I am just going to turn this over to Alicia to introduce and tell this story and have them tell this story because, folks, we're not allowed to have fun anymore. But we are allowed to have generative, impulsive, evolved projects develop out of the little community that we are building. So, Alicia, introduce our guests and let's get into it.
Well, some of you may remember that on another trip early in September, which also took me to Slovenia, I also went to Barcelona. And while there, I said I ran into somebody connected to the show. And I don't think I actually managed to say out loud who it was because I was quiet for the rest of the show. but it was Lad Decker. And she came up to me and she introduced herself and said she was a member of the Greek chorus. And we have a selfie. I have yet to see the selfie. I'm sure I was making a face, but there's proof and evidence. And then she told me that they have been working together on this project. And so I thought this would be a great thing to bring on the show and to have these fine women tell us what they've been doing, because it exemplifies what you've been trying to build here too, Ben, I think.
Thanks, Lisa. Yes, this is true. I'm a member. I'm an extended member of the Greek chorus because I watch it in recording because I'm based in Seattle, where it is very dark here. But I tried to choose lighting, Ben, that fit the show.
Your background's actually pretty fabulous. I like this background very much.
Thank you. So I'm Lad Decker. I'm an artist. I'm a painter, and I'm also the vice president of research at a product design company in Seattle. And I wear two hats, if you will. One is an artist interested in complex issues around national security, public service, and international relations. And human conflict is what I study. And then as a researcher, I study everything that's human computer interaction and trying to help people deal with technology like this we're on now, or the AWS outage like yesterday. But I met Lauren Buitta a long time ago. She follows my art on Instagram, and I had reached out to her a long time ago. I was like, hey, is there anything I could do? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, we'll stay in touch and we shall see. And then many things happened. And then one day I was watching Dog Shirt TV, and Lauren, you were on, and you were talking about some of the challenges in reaching your audience and reaching girls. So that was a great reminder of, hey, maybe there's something I could do for you. So I'll pause there.
So, Lauren, remind those members of the audience who don't know who you are and who don't know what girl security is, who you are and what you do.
I'm a nobody, but
that would be false, and that should raise credibility questions about everything you say subsequently. So now we're going to have to fact check you.
That was not the record.
I'm a steward of mission, put it that way. But yeah, Girl Security is an organization I founded like 6 or 7 years ago now to help bring girls into the orbit of understanding what national security is, understanding how they can influence national security, and for those seeking pathways, helping them get from point A to point B through a number of supportive services. We have participants across 50 states now, which is really exciting. And despite what people may think, demand is the highest it's ever been for girls and young women who really see purpose as critical to their identity and sort of their pursuit. So it's a privilege to get to do the work that I get to do every day. Like truly, it's the most important thing I'll ever do.
I just want to say, as somebody who sometimes speaks to girl security groups, both virtually and in person, these are some of the most amazing groups of people that I ever speak to, and it is a truly, truly inspiring project.
Thank you. And it is like it's the next generation, right? Like this is I'll write a book at some point about the last 9 months, but it certainly is the case that we really need to be investing in young people's understanding of how government works and where they can have influence, and how they can rethink the institutions in which they'll be participating, either civically or from an employment perspective. But one of the things that we always try to do, which is why Lad's work was so powerful to me, is think about different mediums and approaches to helping young people understand what national security is. And Lad's art is like such an amazing interpretation, so visually striking, and really challenges, I think, viewers to engage in an understanding of national security that is very much a reflection of what we try to do. So as Lad noted, like one of our biggest challenges is this constant realization that teens know very little about how the government works, and almost nothing about what national security is. We consider it the most powerful political realm in the world. And so we base much of our training in design thinking and systems-based thinking. And so we were sort of like, how do we create a system that is identity-centered, that can support neurodiverse learners, that can be gamified and super cool, where we can just like bring a bunch of teenagers across the country together and crowdsource a bunch of national security problems and have them have this like very rewarding design thinking based experience. And that is the basis of our marriage.
Yeah. All
Okay,
right.
so let's have, since we're now using marriage metaphors, let's have the gender reveal party for the baby. What have you guys been working on?
Go ahead,
And
let
so,
you.
yeah. So my product design firm, we're called Blink UX, and we work on the biggest challenges you can find in the world, with the biggest corporations as well as the major industries. But every summer, our team, who really wants to work on stuff that makes a difference in the world, often for people who can't afford to work with us, we get to do a pro bono project. And we go find someone who is doing good in the world, and who just needs that like leap forward in technology. And so when I heard Lauren talking about how they're trying to reach more girls in a virtual space, I'm like, this is what we do all day long. And so I reached out to her and I was like, hey, can I talk to you about this potential project we do with you? And she's like, sure. She's like, I can't meet with you, but I'm gonna send a couple of my people. And Lauren, haven't told you this part of the story, but I was like, great. And so you send me a couple names, and like weeks go by, and I'm gonna meet with them, and I just assumed they were young girls on your team. And
I sent in the power.
do you want to tell me? Do you want to tell them who you sent me?
I sent Gina Bennett. Um, Gina is most famous.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm gonna have to tell the story.
You're
So,
on the hook.
oh man. So the day before, because Ben, I so with you, like no prep, man. The day before, I get on LinkedIn and I'm like, hey, maybe I should look up who Gina Bennett is. Uh, and Lauren's gonna tell it a lot better, but I got onto LinkedIn and realized she was a CIA analyst. And started to panic that maybe I should have been more prepared for my meeting. And hopefully Lauren comes back. I also got to meet with Shannon Harrison, who's a very seasoned educator and leads the curriculum for girl security. Anyway, so I got on with them, and I was delighted to find that Shannon was not only wearing a pink sweatshirt with cats on it, but her 2-year-old granddaughter was crawling all over her. So I felt much at home. But I got to talk to them about what we could do for them. And it took us a while to figure out like how we might work with them, because what Girl Security does is such a huge space to work in. But we really landed on how we might help extend their program to girls in that virtual platform. Lauren left right at the cliffhanger. So, oh, Ben, you're on mute.
All right, so tell us about the project. What are you guys actually doing together?
Well, before I get to that, I had to convince my team, Ben, to do this, and I, Lauren was talking about how girls like don't know what national security is, adults don't either. And that was one of the reasons, Alicia, I reached out to you at the conference, because I'm like, we need more connection. We need the policy people, the national security people, and frankly, the rest of the civilian population to like talk to each other and be in these spaces. So a large part of what I did, Lauren, was convince my team that what Lauren was doing was not scary and was not intimidating, and that it was super interesting and meaningful, and that they would have wanted to be a part of it. So Lauren, we helped, extend your platform essentially so that you could reach more girls. Lauren, you're already working with a brand company to bring the brand further to life. And so we collaborated with them and we created a full platform vision around how they work together. Because, Lauren's group, they work with tools like this and Zoom and Google Meet and Slack and Google Docs to coordinate. But those girls are just like us. They don't know how to touch all these things. And we conducted research directly with the girls and with the educators. And I think what I learned most from that was how hard it is to be a young girl and how stressful it is. And a lot of what we designed was around helping them focus on what the challenge was. Lauren, do you want to talk about the challenges in the program? The design challenge?
Wait,
Uh-oh.
Lauren, you are muted, or at
Muted?
least you're inaudible, whether you're muted or not.
Punny.
Hmm.
I am too punny today.
All right.
I just want
I'll
you to
go
know that I
into
didn't make a
Lauren.
joke about
Keep
Audible.
keep going,
All
lad.
right. I'll keep going into it. So what Lauren's program does is they use design thinking, or we just call it design, to tackle a national security challenge. And I love this because this is what Blink does all day long, is we take the design process, which begins with research. To understand what is the challenge. And we talk to real people who are involved in the challenge and have to deal with it. So we talk to the girls. What's it like to be in their shoes? How do they respond to Lauren's program when they get into it? What are challenges they deal with? And a lot of it was around the technology and just understanding, like, how do I engage every day? How do I pause for a moment out of my chaotic teenage life to focus on what is a challenge you're trying to solve with ethical AI was one of our challenges that we tackled. And then we connected the platform so that all the teachers are in there as well as all the materials. So it's both like a self-service platform as well as a live engagement platform with the teachers. And they're able to see, we gamified it. Gina was one of the big advocates of like, can't you make it fun? And so that was one of the pieces we leaned into heavily.
So bring this down to brass tacks for me. What is the platform and how is the experience of a participant different from so my understanding of the girl security program, at least from my engagements with it, have been that there are, some in-person trips. There are, Lauren brings groups to Washington uh, uh, but there is also a large amount of it is an online uh, uh, set of lectures and conversations and mentorings. So, how is the experience of a participant different today as a result of this project, or how is it changing from what it was before?
Oh,
It's
can you hear me
it's a
now?
We can
yes.
hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I think this is probably helpful context. One of the things that I was saying is our theory of change, right, is the idea that if you work with populations that have been excluded from a field like national security, you're going to identify or surface solutions that weren't there, right? Like that's the whole point of it. And what that sort of led us to think about, okay, how do we take what girl security is building, right? Like, so identifying solutions that didn't exist before, including what Lad's team had built. We wanted to create an initiative of girl security called All Secure, right? Which would sort of be like our theory of change. If you work with girls, they produce solutions that can then be shared to a broader community. So the UX-based platform that Lad's team built is sort of the basis of All Secure. So it will support thousands of students, ideally across the nation, in working through design-based solutions to issues around like Lad mentioned, how do you think about ethical uses of AI and national security? How do we prioritize sort of AI literacy with this like grand fear that the national security community has of like some kind of DNA being mutated by AI technologies? But it'll also like bring it down to their perspectives, right? Of issues around like AI surveillance, healthcare, sort of grounding national security issues from the communities that they live in to develop solutions that we can then generate and share with a broader community of thinkers like all of you. So the platform supports all of that. It can support lots of teens working in groups, working through a design thinking based issue, and then generating solutions that can be shared with the public.
And and when you say platform, that makes it sound like, Zoom or Riverside or Facebook. What is it exactly? Like what's the I assume this is a technological product that some kind of convening has various convening capacities. But what is the platform, and from a user point of view, either a user, say, like Lauren, who's convening lots of girls for girls' security, or from the point of view of a participant, how is it different from, say, Zoom?
It's Lauren, if I can describe it, it's a customized learning management system. So it's like Riverside or Zoom, where a group of us are in this cohort. We have a chat going on. We also have other assets available, including presentations and other interactions like whiteboards or Fig Jam. That's what we use a lot. So it is all of that, but for us, this is kind of normal. If you're growing up in a very loud household where you really can't afford the latest technology, you're mostly either just on a phone or you're not connected at all. And so that it's bringing people who never use these tools or rarely use these kind of tools into an environment where they can be comfortable and feel safe. And psychological safety was a huge piece of creating a space where they can come up with ideas and talk about them. And even just being on camera can be very terrifying for them. So having a way you can make an avatar for yourself, being able to see that you're in a cohort that's safe, where you can get to know people as well as you are an individual. And you can be alone as an individual with your teacher, or you can be in a cohort with your teacher. You have an easy way, a safe way to ask for help when you need it, as well as a lot of self-service. And then you can earn badges and rewards both as a cohort and privately. Because sometimes you don't need everyone to know everything you've won and everything you've achieved or that you're working on. So it's kind of a many faceted platform. If you could make Zoom great for kids, that's kind of like one way to think of it.
Yeah, and
So,
I was just going to add in, it's hard for me as a non-technical person to really sufficiently explain what they've built, but the best way I can describe it is like, I think that you all know that I was sexually assaulted and when I was employed in national security. And for a number of years until this day, if I walk into a room, I walk along the back wall and I stand in the back of the room. And that was something that my whole life, I had to sort of work past. And I always just thought, like, boy, wouldn't it be great to design systems or spaces where like you can account for the challenges that people experience in their everyday lives and create those levers they can pull to still participate in spaces they want to be in, national security obviously being the one that we've created. So Lad's team has like created all these levers, right, for girls in our program to pull through a technical platform that looks very much like the game of life. So like it's also aesthetically and visually fun and colorful and those sorts of things. But there's all of these levers they could pull based on the security experiences that they've had to fully participate in this discussion about national security and to feel like their voices are heard. And like that to me feels really extraordinary because so many of the barriers to engagement are, I don't want to say self-imposed, but they derive from someone's experiences that have been really adverse.
super interesting. Is there like are there screenshots or can you give us a tour?
Yeah, that's all
Can.
above
Oh
my.
my gosh, I knew it. All right, let me get in here. I hope this works. Uh oh, give me a
Yeah.
second here.
While you're doing that, Mike, do you have any thoughts, questions as somebody who has just been expelled from the national security community?
I mean, I wasn't expelled. I was sort of blackballed from the cool kids and then walked away. No,
Which, that's a very
I'm
like
not saying it's
middle
better.
school girl cafeteria kind of, high school, middle school cafeteria kind of
Yeah, well, the
experience, right?
intelligence
Dan
community.
Bongino won't sit at a table with you, and so you're sort of like in exile.
Yeah, I mean, look, the intelligence community is run by conspiracy theorists and podcasters, and the area of the Venn diagram where those two things overlap. So this is where we are. But I'm curious, given that up until recently we did have a semi-functioning intelligence community, has there been a reaction from people on the inside who want to help, or are they generally sort of standoffish the way they are with a lot of civic groups, or just what has your interactions been like with the agencies and the organizations where these girls eventually would hope to go work?
And let me amend that question by saying before January 20th of this year and
Yeah,
after.
yeah, very fair.
Yeah, I think to your point, so one of the biggest things that we've observed that we're reacting to is the loss of knowledge transfer, especially from women leaving the IC. So there's just this like drain of knowledge, and so um, we launched a project that we hope this platform will also support called the Legacy of the Oath, where we are essentially downloading the knowledge of women and people leaving the IC so that we can think about how to package it for training for young people. Um, and that's where we've seen a lot of like an overwhelming amount of support is people leaving government, especially from the IC, who want to lend their knowledge to how we think about workforce training, how we think about sort of the future of work, the future of democracy. So all we have seen, which has honestly like been super buoying for us, like emotionally, is um, people. We've always had a really proactive community of people like Ben and Alicia who have come out to help us. But I think in this case, it's more about posterity, right? Like it's more about how do we ensure that 30 plus years of service is not for naught, and how do we ensure that the next generation has access to that? So from a knowledge basis, yes. From a mentoring, we have a mentoring program. We've seen a huge influx in that. I think the challenge is for I think the challenge right now for teenagers, especially because we just opened the applications for our workforce program. Um, One of the things that I kind of keeps me up at night is that you have all these young people who want to serve their country, right? Like that's what they want to do. And they're having to figure out alternative pathways to do that. And so we're also focused a lot on that. But the support has been really overwhelming.
Well, I don't know if you're plugged into at all the FBI alumni community from the national security side, but the way you described it, I could think of a dozen good friends at both the working and SES level who would probably very much want to help. So,
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's amazing. Yeah, and like part of what we're trying to do, and again, this is what this platform will somewhat enable us to do, is we already have regional hubs, the south side of Chicago being one, so we're trying to create closer points of proximity where young people can engage with national security where they live. So where we can find people across the country where we have programming is also really important because they need to feel the proximity. And I also think states and localities, I know at least in the city of Chicago, for obvious reasons, are thinking about how to create national security competencies at the local level. And so there's a lot that we're trying to orient our program around to support and ensure that young people are participating in some way in those discussions.
All right,
I
Lad.
did not know you were also a Chicagoan, so
Are you
that
also a Chicagoan?
I am very much so, yeah.
All right, Lad, let's take a look at the
Yay.
platform.
All right, welcome. So I'm giving a peek right into the platform itself. So it's using the colors that Lauren's visual design team has brought us. So we're bringing those to life. But this is kind of a day in the life of a fellow in the clinic, Liz, and she's getting started with her day and catching up. So a lot's been going on in Liz's life, and she's trying to figure out where she's at. So we've given her a course map that's kind of gamified there, as well as she can see her own profile, her own superpowers, the badges that she's won. She has a cohort that she can look at here as well that she's a part of. And she can see that she's in week 11 here and how much time it's going to take. And she can navigate across here. But let me get ahead here. She's able to take different courses. I'm trying to give you a peek into some of the help features. Pardon my navigating through here, but here she's diving into one of the courses, as well as she's forgotten like what design thinking is. So she's able to go through those different pieces there, and then even take part in a workshop with her cohort, and then see all the
And the
different
workshop
pieces.
is this isn't just a schedule.
That's right.
The workshop is if she clicks on that, that's integrated into the thing itself.
Correct.
Or it links out. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of like a dashboard that links out to many tools,
Gotcha.
like Google Docs. You can see there. But I think what's really important, I'm going to get back to our framework here. This was key to us understanding, when we're designing for people, it's really understanding like who are these people for real, and understanding that. And that was part of the coursework for girl security, is understanding what is a real design challenge, and they go out and interview people, just like we do at Blink. But we developed this experience framework from that research, understanding really what's important. And you can see that middle layer there. These were those 5 pieces of the pillars around collaboration, understanding the expectations. And one of my favorites was this joyous growth, that this is fun and it's interesting and it's not scary, and it creates curiosity and not fear. A lot of these girls are growing up in environments where they can't be themselves, and they can't relax. So this was a huge piece of this, is this intellectual safety for them.
Wow, this is spectacular. And I know a question that is on the minds of a lot of people listening to this, which is, what does design thinking or design really have to do with national security at all? One is, like a question of architecture and art and 99% invisible, and which, by the way, guys, if you've never listened to 99% Invisible, wonderful podcast about design and design thinking. And the other is guys with guns kicking down doors, and Mike Feinberg.
I just want to say there is an overlap there.
Well, I'm trying to get to the overlap, like I'm caricaturing things for purposes of, walk me through, Lauren,
Yeah.
what that overlap is. Like, why is training a bunch of girls in design thinking a way of training a generation of national security thinkers?
Yeah, I mean, design thinking and systems-based thinking are sort of 2 areas of learning that are most evidence back in terms of just different efficiencies and building competencies that we recognize most youth need. But we also have always really prided ourselves in not telling girls what to think about national security or what we think national security is. We try to frame how national security has been defined for them and create a space, which design thinking enables, for them to design it for themselves. And that's really where design thinking comes in, especially for youth. It breaks the thought process down into component parts. and grounds it in their lived experience. So, for example, in one of our high schools right now on the south side of Chicago, they are in the community that has been impacted by the ice raids. And these students are also participating in a design thinking based exercise about the use of ShotSpotter in their communities. So they're living in the issue, the national security issue, while also contributing their thoughts to designing solutions. So design thinking is also very mindful of like social and emotional learning, right? Of getting them to think about sort of the emotional well-being of themselves before they engage into like a pretty weighty thought exercise that's also impacting their community. Um, and I think sort of like how does that connect up? You know, we believe as an organization that our new mission statement, which will be revealed shortly, is building the future of national security by design, not default. So much of our national security defaults to the status quo. And we really want to create a generation of youth that can set aside the status quo and truly be innovative about how we think about national security solutions. Because I think if the last 9 months have evidenced anything, it's at least for us that progress is paper thin. So, how do we really become innovative in these spaces? And that's what design thinking can sort of unlock, especially for adolescents.
So I want to give a very brass tacks example of this from my own life, which uh, really made an impression on me. I can't remember when we did it, but it was, a number of years ago. Um, I got interested in this problem of sextortion, which is loosely speaking a form of sexual exploitation, generally but not exclusively of girls, although there is definitely a vibrant market for it in among boys and women as well. But the low the end the center of the bell curve in it is a is an underage girl problem. I would say that's where the bulge of the bell curve will be. And I started looking at this, and Quinta Jurecic and I and a team did a very substantial set of Brookings reports on it. And this is an epidemic problem in high schools, and it's getting worse because of the ability now to make porn out of AI that is about real people. Um, and um, uh, and I could not persuade the cybersecurity community to be interested in this problem. And the reason is a design question. It's actually not a hard technical problem. This was not, I don't think sexism was the core of the problem. I actually think the core of the problem is it's not interesting from a technical point of view. We know exactly how to prevent it, which is, you know, use good passwords and don't respond to phishing emails and don't send people nudes, right? Like if you do those three things, you're gonna prevent 99% of sextortion cases. Um, and so, from a cybersecurity point of view, if you define cybersecurity as the security of computers, which is really the way people define it emotionally and mentally, sextortion isn't even interesting, right? Because the computers, pardon the sexual metaphor, the computers aren't being penetrated, right? You don't have a security of computers problem. You have a security of people problem, right? The people in social interaction with the computers are behaving in a fashion that is very dangerous to them. And so there's a design question as to how do you look at this ecosystem and even see that there's a problem. And um, and I think now, because the cybersecurity of teenagers, if you're if you're a if you're a company that does cybersecurity, it's just an easy problem. I mean, they should do X, Y, and Z, and the problem goes away, right? And they should stop doing A, B, and C. But that ignores the reality of teenagers' lives, and it ignores the social ecosystems that they live in. It ignores the fact that their brains aren't fully developed. It ignores the fact. And so, if you think about the problem from the point of view of a cybersecurity engineer, you're going to get the wrong answer. And you're going to get it over and over and over again. You have to think about the question from the point of view of a teenage girl or a gay teenage boy who's engaging with people online uh, uh, sexually because you're not out and you're in a community where the only place you can be yourself is in some online forum. You have to think of it from the point of view of the affected community. And, sorry, people don't go into cybersecurity because they're like deeply emotionally connected with their communities. It's just like not and so I think like there's a it made a very profound impression on me that I could not get people to think of this as a cybersecurity problem, only as a teenagers sending nudes problem. Mike, you've been
Well,
trying to get
yeah,
in.
yeah. Well, 2 points. First, I don't know whether it was intentional, but you just inadvertently, maybe inadvertently, hit on a huge debate that was going on within the intelligence and law enforcement community for literally my entire career, which is, do we treat computers as a target or a tool? And those who specialized in what we would,
Unpack that for
yeah,
people
so,
who are
so
not familiar with this debate.
those who specialized in cyber intrusions from a national security perspective or from just a traditional criminal perspective were very adamant that there was so much specialized knowledge that any crime involving a computer network should be treated materially differently than a crime that did not have a nexus to a computer network. And there were people like myself who, just to be blunt, thought that was kind of bullshit. The computer is the tool you use to effectuate something that is an age-old behavior or a long-standing crime. Having a cyber-focused core of investigators would be like having a gun-focused core of investigators when semi-automatic weapons were involved. The behavior itself is not actually new or particularly complicated.
Correct.
It's simply that it's a new tool. So it was always, I worked in counterintelligence, and it was always a huge insult to us and pain in the ass how like cyber division would be endlessly focused on these name and shame campaigns because it doesn't actually stop anything. And we would try and tell them, well, like, have you ever considered working with us instead of indicting a hacker who you're never going to get in handcuffs? What about working with some of the agencies that go overseas and trying to recruit one of them? And it was just like there's this lockdown in the cyber community to refuse to consider other disciplines. And I mean, speaking personally, it's a real frustration now when I see people who are really in favor of robust AI development and very much against any level of regulation that they're thinking simply as programmers. They're not drawing in
Right.
philosophy or law or political science. Like it's the age, not to reduce it to something totally banal, but it's the age old question like, you need to think about not just can you do something, but also should you do something. And you can't do that if you're just focused on one discipline.
Right. So I agree with that completely. And I think I became convinced that if you wanted to stop sextortion, you would start with 100 focus groups of teenagers and young women. And that is another way of to go back to what Lad and Lauren were talking about. That's another way of saying that like there is a relationship between design thinking and security
Yeah,
problems,
I mean,
right?
just I will point out that I was one of the knuckle dragging gun carriers you referenced. But to my credit, one of the few books I had in every office and cubicle I ever occupied in the FBI was Tufts' visual representation of quantitative data, because the more you can think about how to actually visualize this stuff in your mind's eye or in a report, the better you can understand and manipulate it. It's like the political science dictum, people who don't define their terms don't know what they're talking about philosophically.
And I think that that just also feels, we've had this conversation 1,000 times in national security circles, AI being an example of, and I mentioned it earlier, this sort of worst case scenario of AI being weaponized to mutate a gene that results in a biosecurity event that kills millions of people. And we're sort of like, yes, that is a worst case scenario, but also teenagers are being nudified and taking their own lives. We don't have to choose one or the other. We can sort of
Exactly.
see how those early impacts are indicators of sort of what those worst case solutions may be. And I think that worst case thinking tends to really diminish the early impacts that often target girls and women. The internet with porn, you talked about spyware and stalkerware, AI nudifying and deep fakes. And so I think part of what we're trying to do is create that space to validate the experiences of girls as really important early indicators of what those worst case scenarios, what some ways of thinking about solutions to those worst case scenarios may actually look like, and like lend credence to that. I think the question becomes that I will weigh on me for probably ever is like, do people actually care about what happens to girls and teenagers? I think that's the bigger issue. Obviously we do, but it starts to feel like that's not the case
Right.
in many spaces.
Can
So
I
I
push back
can,
gently against that question?
Sure.
against about what question?
So about do people I think phrasing do people care about girls and victims of AI porn or crimes against children or what have you is sort of the wrong way of thinking about it from a societal perspective. And that's not because I don't think it's one of the most important questions we can ask. I don't know if you're familiar. I spent like the last 6 months of my career laser focused on 764, which is very much in this stream. And like the question isn't, do people care about girls or do they care about children writ large? It's where does that sit on the ladder of priorities of other things they care about? Because Ben's right. Like a lot of the tech companies can stop this stuff tomorrow. They really can. They can stop child porn. They can stop AI generated porn. They can stop a lot of cyber intrusions. It's just they have other priorities, and they'll never phrase it that way. But like this is fundamentally a moral question we have to ask about society as a whole, I think.
I
And
guess
that's
I'm not.
something that often gets
I'm
lost in
not
it.
seeing the difference between your formulation and Lauren's.
Maybe it's
I
a
didn't
slight
take
difference.
Lauren's point to be that there's a binary switch that they either
Correct.
care
Yes.
or don't.
Yes.
I took her to be saying,
Is
do you
Yeah,
care enough to give up something else for it?
right. And that, but like that's the, and just to tie this back to what was originally, and I'm sorry if I mischaracterized, I was trying to add nuance, not contradict it.
We're
But
just shooting the shit.
yeah, I mean, like,
I'm done with nuance, Michael. Nuance left me in January, and now I'm really just I'm in the black and white.
yeah, join the club. So this is like one of the evergreen problems of national security writ large, though, which is 95%, for example, of the espionage cases that I worked on involving the private sector, whether it was a tech company, an aerospace designer, some sort of clear defense contractor, like the espionage never needed to occur. They easily could have put in safeguards that would have stopped a penetration or an exfiltration of data from happening. It's just national security, like a lot of crime, is preventing it's gonna be secondary to a general profit motive, regardless of the underlying morality of the actions of the malefactor.
I hear what you're saying. I guess I would say I think we have to move beyond some of that thought process to um, I don't want to say global in the like literal sense, but ultimately the only evidence we have is that where girls and women are unsafe, where their security is threatened, a country is more likely to become autocratic. And so in my mind, we have a lot of reasons to maybe rethink how we uh, assign value to those different issues, and to think more holistically about them.
Don't
I don't
disagree.
actually think you guys are
No,
disagreeing
I don't.
on any
I don't
material
disagree.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything you said.
Yeah.
It's just I have less hope that you could convince either the private sector or public institutions to do that, as witnessed by, like, in the United States, the institutions that should care the absolute most about rule of law, you would think would be the institutions that are filled with professionally trained lawyers. And we've seen law firms capitulate at a much greater rate than they have stood up to encroaching authoritarianism in our country. So I'm just like,
Here is
sorry, I don't mean to
here is a
like impute
design idea.
despair to everybody.
Here is a
What?
design idea that I had in the course of doing my sextortion work that for example, I would love to bounce off of a 100 focus groups of teenagers.
Mhm.
We have just exploding messages. We don't have exploding pictures. We don't have exploding videos. What if there were a product embedded in your iPhone, part of your iPhone camera, so that when you take a picture and you send it to somebody, the picture self-destructs in 20 minutes or 2 hours?
Isn't that Snapchat?
No, Snapchat, the message does,
Yeah.
right? But then what if somebody saves
Or
the
screenshots? Yeah.
right? So I'm
Um,
saying I want I don't think you're going to persuade teenagers not to send each other nudes.
mhm.
As my then teenage son put it years ago, you just can't put a portable porn studio in the hands of every teenager in the country and not expect trouble. So we're um, we're you're gonna have a certain amount of that. I am interested in the harm mitigation to the user of that reality. So I want the teenager to have the option when he or she takes a picture of him or herself or takes a video of him or herself to say, this picture will stop existing 20 minutes from now. And I can send it all over the world. I can post it but the file itself is going to explode, Mission Impossible style. That
I
is
know, and my mind instantly goes to that's going to make it a lot harder to capture espionage subjects.
so you know what?
Like it's, but
Fuck it.
yeah, no, I'm
Because
not
I
saying that's
care
the right thing. I'm
more,
just saying,
but
like,
this is another element of design issues, right? If I can help 10 million people mitigate the harm of their reckless decisions to take pictures of their bodies and send them to people they don't know well enough to do that. And the result is that I'm enabling a certain amount of espionage,
no. Yeah,
including, by the way, our espionage against other
yeah.
countries. That is a trade I take in a heartbeat.
No. What I'm saying is, like, I'm not concerned about the espionage increase from your plan. I'm concerned about the response to the espionage increase, which is once this tool is used for purposes for which it was not intended, and it could be espionage, it could be crime, it could be whatever, all of a sudden there's going to be a really powerful incentive for people to build a way to reconstruct those photos. And it might be the fort doing it. It might be the Russians or the Chinese. It might be private hackers for
Make
hire.
them do the work.
I'm fine with that. I'm
But
just saying,
fine,
like,
but I don't care if the fort does the work. I don't care if the Chinese does the work. I care if the 15-year-old in high school stupidly sends a picture of herself to one of these sextortionists, that she's not enslaved for the next 5 years.
Ben, I 100% agree with that calculus. The point I'm making is that I think it is a mistake to think about a problem enabled by technology and focus on a technological solution. That's going to be a stopgap. There is an underlying cultural issue that is much more acute because, like, the fact is, kids are going to find way to self-harm, whether it's literal self-harm or the type of self-harm where you do something that doesn't seem like self-harm, but you create a record that is. Like, there's a bigger issue than just the technology, and I think the technology is ultimately just going to be a stopgap,
You
not
are
a solution.
100% right, but the defaults in the technology that we have available matter enormously, which is
Yes.
the point of Lauren and Lad's product here, right? Like, you have a default in which they would otherwise be clicking, you know, gems falling out of the sky and putting them in the
Yeah.
right? And now they're, maybe playing a game that actually is, uh, you know, meaningfully enriching on some important set of issues. I'm saying right now, this phone has 30 apps that
Yeah.
allow me to do stupid things and take pictures of myself and send them to people. And wouldn't it be a little bit better if we changed the defaults of those? Look, folks, we got to go. We're already a minute over here. Lad, Lauren, thank you for doing this project together, and thank you for coming on the show and talking about it. And people, we're going to be back tomorrow. Don't panic. I know it's like there's a separation anxiety that happens whenever, Alicia goes off wandering, or, we end the show. But I'm just here to tell you it's going to be okay, because 23 hours from now, or 22 hours and 58 minutes from now, we're going to do it all again. And I don't know who the co-hosts are going to be. I don't know who the guests are going to be, but you're going to be there, and I'm going to be there, and probably somebody else is going to be there, and it's going to be a freaking blast.